A king's body was found in the snow, but his head was still inside the locked house. February 10, 1567. Kirk O'Field, Edinburgh. The house was burning. Servants ran screaming into the dark with torches, but when they dragged Lord Henry Darnley's corpse from the wreckage, there wasn't a mark on it. No burns, no ash. The body was clean. And that's when the questions started, the ones that would destroy a queen. Mary, Queen of Scots, was beautiful. I've read the contemporary accounts and they're almost obsessive about it. Reddish hair, pale skin, intelligent eyes. But beauty in the 16th century Scottish court was a liability, not an asset. It made her a target. She'd already survived more than most women see in a lifetime. Widowed at 18 when her first husband, the King of France, died of an ear infection. Exiled back to Scotland. Forced to navigate the treacherous waters of a kingdom full of men who wanted her throne, her land, or her body. Then she met Henry Darnley. He was tall, charming, and this matters, he had a claim to both the English and Scottish thrones. For Mary, marrying him seemed like consolidating power. For Darnley, it was a shortcut to a crown he didn't deserve. The marriage was a disaster almost immediately. Darnley was vain, unstable, and a drunk. Within months, he was conspiring against Mary. Within a year, he'd helped orchestrate the murder of her closest advisor, David Rizzio, stabbing him 46 times while Mary, pregnant, watched helplessly. Mary gave birth to a son shortly after, the future James VI, but something in her broke that night. She never forgave Darnley, never forgot his weakness, his cruelty, his scheming. And by early 1567, she was desperate to be rid of him. Enter James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell. He was a soldier, a survivor, and he was absolutely ruthless. More importantly, he was in love with Mary, or so he claimed. The historical record here is murky. What's clear is that Bothwell had connections, dangerous ones. In late 1566, Bothwell and other nobles began plotting. They wanted Darnley dead. Mary's involvement remains one of history's most contested questions. Did she authorize it? Did she know? The letters, some of which survive, suggest she knew something was coming. Darnley was sick in late January. Syphilis, most likely, though the records call it the pox. He was convalescing at Kirk O'Field, a house on the outskirts of Edinburgh. Mary visited him regularly. She was planning to move him to another residence for further recovery. On the night of February 9th, Mary attended a wedding celebration at Holyrood Palace. She left around midnight, unusual for her, since she'd been spending nights at Kirk O'Field. This small choice may have saved her life. Around 2 a.m., neighbors heard an explosion. The entire east side of Kirk O'Field collapsed in flames. By dawn, the house was a smoking ruin. But when searchers combed through the wreckage, they found Darnley's body in the garden, untouched by fire, dressed in his nightshirt with a rope around his neck. He'd been strangled. The autopsy was quick, rough by modern standards, but the conclusion was unambiguous. Darnley was dead before the fire started. Someone had murdered him, set the house ablaze to cover their tracks, then moved the body outside. The suspicion fell immediately on Bothwell, and probably on Mary. Broadsheets circulated in Edinburgh, some showing Mary and Bothwell together in compromising positions. The court was fractured. Nobles who tolerated her before now saw her as a liability. Mary's response was catastrophic. Instead of distancing herself from Bothwell, she married him. 3 months after Darnley's death, the court erupted. Even her supporters abandoned her. They saw the marriage as a confession. Within weeks, a coalition of Scottish lords raised an army. They marched on Mary and Bothwell at Carberry Hill on June 15, 1567. Bothwell fled. Mary, after a brief standoff, surrendered to avoid bloodshed. She thought they'd negotiate. She was wrong. They imprisoned her in Lochleven Castle, locked in a tower room. The same lords who'd conspired with Bothwell to kill Darnley were now using that murder to destroy her. The irony was brutal, and it wasn't lost on Mary. She was forced to abdicate in favor of her infant son. Then she was moved between different prisons for years. Eventually, she escaped to England, seeking protection from her cousin Elizabeth. Instead, Elizabeth had her imprisoned again and eventually executed in 1587. The truth about Kirk O'Field has never been fully settled. Bothwell was almost certainly the architect. Mary's complicity, whether she ordered it, knew of it, or was simply used, remains contested by historians. What's certain is that her choices after the murder sealed her fate. One wrong step, one marriage too many, and a queen became a prisoner. The bloody bridal bed wasn't just Darnley's murder, it was Mary's undoing. A single night of violence and fire that unraveled a kingdom and sent a queen to the executioner's block 20 years later. Sometimes history hinges on moments we can barely see coming until they've already destroyed everything. Subscribe for the next royal scandal. There's a new conspiracy, betrayal, or exile every week.